Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you exactly how I edit the image from our last video to create that punchy, polished look using Capture One in Photoshop. If you don't have Capture One, don't worry, you can also easily do this in Lightroom. So let's jump in. Jumping into Capture One, I have 4 images that I am going to be using. And if you watched the last video, I took an image of the top of the product, the midsection, and the bottom. This is so that when I take them into Photoshop, I can stack the images and get everything in focus. Now, if I zoom into this top image, you can see that this bottom section is not in focus. So I wanted to make sure everything is nice and crisp, which is why I took those 3 photos. And then the 4th photo, I diffused this top section right here. And you can see the difference between this, where you can barely read that it is Dr. Pop, and then as I diffuse it, I can now read that a little bit better. Starting off with the edit, I am going to start with this first top photo and I am going to adjust my exposure ever so slightly. I'm going to bring it down just a little bit, maybe to about right there. And I'm also going to boost my contrast just a little bit. Now, I don't do too much at this point because I like to add contrast in Photoshop. This is just to get a little bit of separation between the highlights and the shadows. I am going to bring my highlights down a little bit, probably down to about right there. And then I'm also going to bring my shadows up a little bit to about right there. Looks good. So I'm going to just do a before and after, and you can already see that those highlights aren't so bright. Those shadows get brought up a little bit and it just pops a little bit more. Now I am going to jump down to my levels section, and I like to bring my levels to where the curve starts to end, basically. So there's a bunch of information in this section, and then this red line here, the curve ends. So I like to bring that up to about there. I don't want to go too high, otherwise I'm going to blow out my whites, but I want my whites to actually be white. Same with my midtones. I am just going to bring this up just a little bit. And the shadows, I want to darken those a little bit as well. And same with my curves. Like, I like that really punchy look. So I'm going to bring the highlights up and the shadows down. So let's do a before and after again. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the settings on this image by pressing Shift Command C and paste it onto my other images by doing Shift Command V across all 4 images. Now that I'm happy with that, I am going to export these images and pull them into Photoshop. Okay, I have brought all of those images here into Photoshop, and I'm going to drag them all into the same document. So I'm going to select V and basically just click and drag one on top of the other. They don't have to be perfect because what we're going to do is align all of the layers afterwards, but I just want them all as their own layer in here. There we go. Now that I have all of them in, I'm just going to duplicate this background layer as a copy, and I'm going to select all, go up to the top here to edit and auto align layers. And this is just going to make sure that they're all lined up in the same spot. I can now click through and you can see that they are all perfectly stacked on top of each other. So for the first thing, I'm going to turn off my diffused layer. I'm going to add that in separately on my own, where these 3 layers, I'm going to let Photoshop determine where the focus points are and create the masking itself. So this layer here, you can see that this bottom section is in focus, but if I turn these ones off, you can see that now this bottom one isn't in focus. And that is why we took the 3 images of the top, the middle, and the bottom. So I'm going to select all of them, shift click, come back up to edit and do auto blend layers. Going to keep it on stack images and click OK. It's going to start creating masks, doing its thing, and then it will spit out a merged layer. So here's that merged layer, but if I turn it off and press Option click on one of these masks, you can see that this mask took the bottom, this mask took the middle, and this mask took the top. And if I turn this back on, you can see that it is all in focus from top to bottom. And I am happy with that. So now I'm going to turn this top layer back on, but I'm going to create a mask and just fill it with black. So grab that paint bucket, fill it with black, and then we're just going to go in and brush where I want that diffused light on that Doc Pop logo. So I've got my brush tool. I'm going to change it to white. I'm also going to lower the opacity to about 50 or 60% and just kind of brush it in. And that helps so that we can now read that flavor. So if I toggle it on and off, you can see that that just looks a little bit better. If I think it's too dark in some sections, I can go back in with my black brush and just bring out some of that purple so it looks a little bit better. On and off again, and that looks pretty good. Okay, so when all of these layers were merged together, it kind of had to move things around. So that's why you can see this little white band at the bottom. So we're going to straighten everything out, align it, make sure the can is upright. It kind of looks like it's leaning to the right a little bit. So first off, I'm going to create a copy of these two merged together. That way I have it as a flat layer and not two separate layers that I have to worry about. And then I'm just going to hide all of these ones in a group and call this my backup. So now I've got this flat layer. I'm going to crop and rotate. So I want it a 4x5 so that it fits better on Instagram. And then also straightening it out just a smidge. I don't want the bottom of the can in the image, so I might bring that up a little bit. And I'm thinking that looks pretty straight. Press enter. It's going to crop out all of that excess, and that is looking pretty dang good. So now what I'm going to do is separate my can from the background. And there's a couple ways that you can do this. You could use the pen tool and cut out the product that way, and then you have the path. For this video, I am just going to use the object selection tool, which is quick key W. And if I just hover over certain sections, it will automatically detect the product and then click it and it creates a selection. It's really easy. I utilize this tool all the time when I'm not needing a perfect selection, and then I'll do Command J and that separates the background from the product. Now what I want to do is add a gradient behind this product. So I'm going to add a gradient layer by clicking in this section below and going to gradient. And I want to pick a gradient that is pink and yellow and vibrant. So I'm going to go to my oranges. I really like this one. If you want something darker or even different colors, you can search through the presets. What I'm going to do is pick one that is close and then modify the colors a little bit. So I think I like this one, but I want the yellow to be on top. So I'm going to do -90 to switch that gradient around, click OK. And then I'm going to come to my pink here, double click on this pink color. And I want to sample one of the colors in here to get it closer to the product colors. I think I like that one. Maybe I can bring it up a little bit to make it brighter. And that's feeling good. Now, if I wanted to change the position of the gradient, I can go to my gradient tool by pressing G, and if it goes to the paint bucket, just do Shift G again, and then you will be able to see that gradient. And I could drag it further so that it has more pink or more yellow and just kind of play with where it's at. I'm going to press Shift and it will lock it in place and do these increments. So I want about there, and maybe the yellow can come up a little bit higher, and that just kind of softens the gradient a little bit more. And I like how that looks. And so I am pretty happy with that. So I like to add noise to my background so that it looks like it was photographed on the background. So I'm going to rasterize the layer and go up to the top to filter, noise, add noise. And I usually keep it around 2 to 3%. So you can kind of see how this edge blurs off a little bit. I just want to match the noise where you can start to see it a little bit. So right in here, so maybe 2.5%. Once I'm happy with it, I'm also making sure that monochromatic is checked. Click OK. And that is good. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is make some adjustments to the can itself. So I like to start with curves and levels. So I'm going to start with a levels adjustment layer, and I like to bring the highlights up just to that line. Usually if you go past it, starts to clip it a little bit. So I like to keep it right at that line there, maybe bring up or down, depending on the look you want. I kind of want it to be really punchy. So I'm going to bring the shadows darker and then add some more depth to those blacks. So if I click that on and off, you can see that it's also affecting my background. So I'm just going to option clip this to just my product, and that way it's just affecting the product. Now I'm going to grab the curves adjustment layer and bring that up just a smidge and down in the shadows, and also making sure that it is clipped. And just selecting these two, you can see that that already makes it so much more punchy. Now, I always like to make the logo stand out from everything else, and I like to add a selective color and adjust the whites. But first, what I want to do is sample the color of the whites. So I will go up to select a color range and sample those whites. And it looks like it's already sampled some, but if you press Shift and click, you can get all of those different ranges of white and click OK. So now what I'm going to do, it selected it in the levels adjustment layer. So I want to make sure that I am on my layer when I do that. So select color range, sampling all of these whites, and then click OK. So now you can see that selection, and then I am going to go over to selective color, click that, and if I option click on this, I can see where all of the white is selected. Now, if I didn't want all of these water droplets in there, I could go in and brush it out. I think it will be fine for what we're doing. I think it's going to make it look more punchy, but you could go in with a black brush and brush it out, or make a selection around these areas and get rid of it. So I've got that logo selected with this area and the prebiotic section. I'm going to go down to my whites and just boost that up a little bit. So if I select that, toggle that on and off, you can just see how much more punchy that is. And I think that looks pretty good. So now what I would probably do is maybe adjust the mid-tone range by adding another selective color adjustment and going to my neutrals and playing around with this. I kind of like that. You could go into your selective color here with your whites, but I like to keep them separate. So I would name this my whites and this my neutrals. And that way I can just adjust them separately. So turning them on and off, I think that looks pretty dang good. I think the only other thing that I would do is sharpen the entire image, or even just this bottle layer. So I would come up to the top and go filter, sharpen, and I like to do the unsharp mask. And just go in and toggle. If I click preview, you can kind of see it's just creating more contrast around those edges and defining it just a little bit more. You can really see those tiny water droplets start to pop out a little bit more. I think that is looking great. That pretty much wraps up how I edit this image. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions down below. Editing truly makes all the difference and really sells that fresh out of the cooler vibe. Let me know what other videos you'd like to see in the comments. Do the things, and as always, I appreciate you being here. Thanks so much for hanging out, and I will see you in the next one.